Bonsoir, French students. Comment allez-vous? I hope you're all doing well. So you'll see here in our second video of Chapitre 3, our second installment, we're going to be talking about le logement. So logement is kind of similar to what you would see in English, lodging. So it's basically where you stay or where you live. And you'll see here off to the left, we have some expressions that describe what you do in that case. So the first expression we see here is j'habite. Habiter, which is a regular ER verb, like you learned about in Chapitre 2. Just means to live in a place. Vivre also means to live, but it's in a different sense. I saw that a lot of students used that in the exam for Chapitre 1. So vivre just means to be alive. Habiter means to live in a place. So j'habite, okay, we're going to use the elision between je and habite because habite has a silent H. It just means I live. So who do you live with? Okay, there are lots of different options that they give us here over to the right. Avec is with, so we can say j'habite avec un colocataire dans une maison, or avec une colocataire dans une maison. So you might recognize if we break down this word colocataire, you can notice location is kind of the root of this word. So co usually means in English and lots of other languages usually means with. So it's basically like the person you share your location with. So j'habite avec une colocataire, so a roommate, that's the person you share your lodging with, dans une maison. Notice the liaison at the end of dans when you connect it to une, dans une maison. Maison is house, so I live with a roommate in a house. Or j'habite avec une camarade de chambre dans une résidence universitaire. I live with a roommate in a room. Chambre looks a lot like chamber, which would be a really old-fashioned, archaic word for room in English. But that's the word that's used in French. Dans une chambre dans une résidence universitaire. So a university residence or a dorm. J'habite seul dans un appartement. So seul, you might remember from the other chapters, means alone or by yourself. The E would go on the end if you are female and describing yourself. So maybe you live alone in an apartment. Dans un appartement. Oh, j'habite dans un grand immeuble. Oh, I live in a big building. Immeuble is a building. Oh, finalement, j'habite chez mes parents. So this word chez becomes really important in this section of the chapter because we're talking about where you live. And very often this word chez, it's basically a preposition. We don't have the same preposition in English. We would say at my parents' house, or you might say in my parents' house. We don't have a direct equivalent of this word chez in English. We just have to describe it in a different way. So it's basically j'habite chez mes parents. I live with my parents, or I live at the place of my parents. Okay, so all of these places where you live, you can describe them with different adjectives like ma maison, mon appartement, ma chambre. And ma maison is feminine, and you can see that by the word ma, which means my, but appartement is a masculine noun, so instead it has the same meaning, it's just a different form. Mon is the masculine form of my. And then chambre obviously is feminine because it's preceded by ma. Okay, et, if you remember, is the form of the verb être that we have to use with a singular subject. So, ma maison est grande, petite. Okay, we'll use the feminine forms with the E on the end because we're talking about maison, which is feminine. Or, mon appartement est moderne. Okay, so it's very modern. Or mon appartement est vieux in this case because we're talking about a masculine noun, appartement. Or ma chambre est jolie, it's pretty, et confortable, comfortable. Ma chambre est trop chère, so it's too expensive. Trop means too, and cher means expensive. Okay, and in this case, I would use the feminine form with the accent here. Okay, so a little bit about the places where we live. All right, so again, we see the same verb, j'habite. So here I can talk about some other locations. J'habite sur le campus. So sur is basically like on top of something, but it just means I live on campus. Or j'habite tout près de l'université. I live pretty close to the university, very close to the university. J'habite très loin de l'université, very far from the university. Loin de is far from. J'habite assez loin de l'université, pretty far from the university. Oh, j'habite dans le centre-ville, so in the center of town, or like downtown. J'habite en ville, I live in the city. Okay, so thinking back to my days of living in Chicago, I could say, j'habite dans le centre-ville. I went to a university that was right in the heart of Chicago, so I could have said that. Or j'habite en ville, I live in the city. And that was a fun time to live in a big city and be a college student. And j'habite en banlieue. Banlieue is the French word for suburbs or the surrounding area of the big city. And the other word that you see there, the other expression is j'habite à la campagne. Campagne is the countryside. So j'habite à la campagne. Le loyer. So I'm sure many of you are experiencing this already as college students, that you have to pay a rent for the place where you live. So le loyer is your rent. Oh, le loyer est de $550 par mois. Okay, and notice that the currency symbol goes after the number here, just like if it were euros. So you have to pay $550 per month, or $1,200, so $1,200. Or je n'ai pas de loyer. That would be the luckiest case of all. If you say je n'ai pas de loyer, it means I don't have any rent. I think that is not the case for any of us, though. Okay. All right, so here we have a picture that gives us some more vocabulary for different parts of the house. And notice again, we have this preposition chez, which means at the place of. So chez moi, so at the place of or at the home of me, or at my place, il y a 6 pièces. There are 6 rooms. Okay, so right here up on the top, we have une chambre, which we've already seen. Une salle de bain. So this would be literally the room of bathing. So the bathroom or the restroom. Hey, une cuisine is the kitchen. Une salle à manger. So literally, if you translated it word for word, it would be like the room to eat. So this is the dining room. Une salle à manger. Un salon. Okay, the living room or the den, depending on which word you use in English. And finally, des toilettes, the bathroom downstairs, just the normal bathroom that probably, I guess, wouldn't have a shower and all of that good stuff in it. Okay, so that's a little rundown of the different areas of the house. Okay, and another interesting thing to notice with buildings in France is that the way the different floors of the house are named is a bit different from what we do here in the United States. So it's a little bit of a cultural difference, I guess. So you're going to notice over here, if we look at the right, that there are these different descriptions for different floors of the building. So at the bottom, you have au sous-sol, so that's in the basement. So that would be the part of the house that, or the building that's underground. Sous means under, okay? And then right here you have au rez-de-chaussée. I'll say that again slowly. Au rez-de-chaussée, okay, or rez-de-chaussée. And there's an abbreviation here, RDC. That's the first or the ground floor. So it's not actually called the first floor. The first floor of a building in France has its own special name, and that's what it would be. What we would call the second floor in the United States, in France would be called premier étage. So au premier étage, so the first floor. Étage would be the floor in that case. Au deuxième étage is what we would call the third floor, and au troisième étage would be what we would call the fourth floor. Let's get that right. Okay, so that's good to keep in mind that the first floor has its own special name and then it's numbered after that. So if you're ever finding yourself in a building with an elevator in France, you might want to pay attention to which button you're pressing to make sure you're going to the right place. Okay, and speaking of elevators, over here in this building we have an ascenseur. And notice whenever the gender of the noun is a little bit ambiguous, they will mark it for you here in the textbook and on the slides. So M stands for masculine. So l'ascenseur is an elevator, and you can see that that would come from the English word to ascend. To ascend is to go up. So the elevator is taking you up, and of course it's bringing you back down too. Another way, of course, that you can go up to different levels or étages of the building would be l'escalier. So this would be like the staircase. And it looks a little bit like scale, or almost like, to scale a mountain or something. So you can kind of see the relationship between French and English words there too. Une fenêtre is a window. And then, of course, to go in this building, you would go in through la porte, the door. All right, and finally, a little bit of cultural description here on the last part of this presentation, les étages. Okay, I think kind of a good way, I've recommended to some students to do this, is if you see a text like this in French, you can either copy paste it or you can type a short text like this. And if you're having a little bit of trouble understanding it, or you just need it to be slowed down a little bit to be able to understand it better, a great tip is to use Google Translate to do that. I know sometimes in high school language classes, your teachers might have said, hey, stay away from Google Translate. Don't use it to write compositions or to translate. And that's true. You don't want it to do the work for you. But you can use it as a good tool if you use it for the right reasons and in the right ways. So, I can easily take this text, and I should, of course, make the effort to read it and understand it first before I do this. But I can take it, and let me find my Google Translate page. I'm going to put it in here. We'll change that to French and then to English. I'm going to ignore the translation though. And one thing that I might want to do is just listen to it, to see what this sounds like. I can actually click on the speaker icon right here. I can listen to it at normal speed the first time, and then I can click on it again and listen to it at a slower speed. So it's a good way to be able to hear something read back to you and to take a little bit of time to practice your listening and even to try to imitate the speaker. So I'll play it through so you can hear what that sounds like.
Dans les immeubles en France et dans la plupart des pays francophones, most French-speaking countries, faites attention, le premier étage est l'étage au-dessus du above the rez-de-chaussée. C'est-à-dire, dans les immeubles en France et dans la plupart des pays francophones, most French-speaking countries.
Okay, so you can hear when I clicked on the speaker icon, it slowed the speaking down a little bit. Another thing that you might have heard there is that the speaker, because it's set to French, actually reads the English words kind of like with a French accent. This is the accent of a French speaker in English, which is kind of interesting. But I think this can be a useful tool, and you'll see with the coffee shop challenge this week that I've given you a task similar to this with numbers, so you can practice both listening and pronunciation. So just kind of an interesting approach to it. Okay, so let's go back over here and just break this down a little bit. So, let me go back. Dans les immeubles en France, we've already seen immeuble, which is building. So, dans les immeubles en France et dans la plupart des pays francophones. So, plupart means like the majority of or most of. So, dans les immeubles en France et dans la plupart des pays francophones, faites attention. So, it's saying In buildings in France, in the majority of French-speaking countries, pay attention. Faites attention. Le premier étage est l'étage au-dessus du rez-de-chaussée. Okay, so the first floor is the floor above the rez-de-chaussée, the ground floor. C'est-à-dire, et c'est-à-dire is an expression you're going to hear a lot in French. That is to say, que le rez-de-chaussée correspond au first floor, ground floor, aux États-Unis, aux USA. So the rez-de-chaussée is the first, it basically goes along with or corresponds with our first floor or ground floor here. Et le premier étage correspond au second floor. So the first floor in France is the same as or corresponds with the second floor in the United States. Au Québec, on trouve les deux manières d'indiquer les étages. Okay, so in Quebec, one finds both of these ways of indicating floors. So in Quebec, that kind of makes sense because it's closer to the United States. We share a continent. There's some cultural exchange between our two countries. And so it makes sense that they would use both ways. Okay. À quel étage est votre chambre ou appartement? Oh, à quel étage? Quel is which. So, à quel étage, which floor, or on which floor, et votre chambre is your room or your apartment. So you can think about your own building, and if you were to tell somebody which floor you live on, what would you tell them? Which floor would it be? Okay, so I think that covers le logement pretty thoroughly, and in our next video coming up later this week, we will be talking more about higher numbers, which I know you're already practicing in MindTap. So have a great night, bonne nuit, and until the next time.